West Ham paid £38 million for Mateus Fernandes last summer. If they get relegated, any club in Europe can trigger a release clause and sign him for £20 million, a discount his own contract locked in before he kicked a ball. Tottenham's entire squad will have their wages slashed in half the instant the club drops out of the Premier League. And Nottingham Forest, a club that spent over £200 million since promotion, have players who flat out refuse to accept any wage cut at all. 3 clubs fighting relegation, 3 completely different contracts, and the clause buried inside each one has already decided what happens if they go down. Today we are pulling apart the relegation clause, the most important mechanism in modern football that nobody discusses until it is far too late. Because what every club treats as responsible financial planning might actually be the reason relegated sides can never recover. And honestly, a single contract clause quietly deciding the fate of 3 massive clubs is exactly the kind of story this channel exists to tell. So if you enjoy football content that gets into the nitty-gritty across all kinds of topics, subscribing really is a no-brainer. A relegation clause is deceptively simple, a line in a player's contract that automatically cuts their wages if the club drops out of the Premier League. The standard reduction at top clubs is 50%. Peter Crouch revealed his Stoke City contract carried a 45% cut and called it quite standard now. The logic sounds airtight. A club that loses Premier League status loses roughly $120 million in television revenue overnight. Sponsorship deals shrink, matchday income craters, and even the bottom club in the Premier League, the one that finishes dead last, still takes home over $120 million in broadcast money alone. Drop a division and that number collapses to single-figure millions, plus parachute payments $44 million in year 1, 35 in year 2, 15 in year 3. Nowhere near enough to bridge the gap, and that is exactly why the relegation clause exists. Every fan who has watched their club overspend on a transfer and thought, what happens if this goes wrong? The relegation clause is the answer buried in the paperwork, and nobody reads it until the answer is already catastrophic. To understand why every serious club now writes it into every deal, you only need to look at the one that forgot. When Newcastle went down in 2016, not a single player in the squad had a relegation clause. The club had gone down before, in 2009, under the same owner, Mike Ashley, and still nobody thought to insert one. John Joe Shelvey, a midfielder the club signed that January with relegation already looming, earned £80,000 a week in the Championship, the highest salary any second-tier player has ever collected. Newcastle's total wage bill hit £98 million that season, the highest in English Football League history, smashing QPR's previous record of £75 million. Benitez stood on the touchline at Burton Albion, managing 80,000 a week players in front of 6,000 supporters. The mismatch said everything words could not. The club sold Wijnaldum to Liverpool for £25 million and Sissoko to Tottenham for 30 fractions of their worth, because Newcastle had no leverage and no protection. Analysts estimated the total cost of that relegation at £200 million for a club that could have softened the blow with a few paragraphs of contract language. The lesson felt brutal and obvious. Write the clause, protect the books, make sure the fall does not destroy you. And Leeds took that lesson to heart. When they went down in 2023, after spending over £200 million across 3 Premier League seasons, their relegation clauses activated immediately. Wages dropped by up to 60%, 8 players shipped out on loan within weeks, and the club saved over £40 million in a single summer. Aronson to Union Berlin, Christensen and Llorente to Roma, Harrison to Everton, Koch to Frankfurt, names leaving faster than the ink on the league table could dry. The books balanced, the finances stabilized, Leeds won promotion straight back, a textbook success story for the relegation clause. Except they are back in the Premier League right now, fighting relegation again. Because every player who left took quality and depth the club never fully replaced. The clause saved the balance sheet and hollowed out the squad, and that trade-off is the part nobody warned them about. Did Leeds get it right by inserting relegation clauses, or did those clauses just make their decline look neater on a spreadsheet? The clause was supposed to be the answer, but 3 clubs sitting inside the bottom 5 right now are about to show you why the answer might be the wrong question entirely. West Ham sit 18th. 3 managers into a season that has already cost them over 100 million in reported losses. Every player in the squad carries a 50% wage cut. Jarrod Bowen drops from 150,000 a week to 75,000, and suddenly every rival in the league can offer him more than his own club. But the real damage hides in the release clauses that activate alongside the wage cuts. Mateus Fernandes, 21 years old, West Ham's £38 million signing from Southampton, becomes available for 20 million the moment they go down. The club could lose an estimated 200 million in player value for roughly half that in actual sales, not because the market moved, but because the contracts they signed dictated exactly what would happen. Picture it. You are a West Ham supporter watching Fernandes play, knowing that every rival club's scouting department already has his relegation price circled in red. The clause does not keep your best players, it tells the world exactly how cheaply they can be taken. Nottingham Forest looked at that scenario and chose the opposite gamble. When the club rebuilt after promotion in 2022, spending over 200 million on new signings, a significant number of those players flat out refused to accept relegation clauses. Forest's wage bill sits at nearly 90 million a year, and if they go down, every penny of it stays on the books. No automatic cuts, no safety net, no mechanism to adjust, just Premier League salaries on Championship revenue. Their income would plummet from around 240 million to under 100 million, while the wage bill barely flinches. 4 managers in a single season: Nuno, Postecoglou, Deitch, Pereira. And the irony is that the chaos on the touchline is nothing compared to the chaos waiting in the accounts department if the results do not turn. Is Forest's approach, refusing the clause and betting everything on survival, braver than it looks, or just reckless? And then there is Tottenham, 1 point above West Ham, staring at what would be the largest wage bill in English football relegation history. Daniel Levy spent nearly 25 years at the club, making sure every contract carried a relegation clause, 50% cuts across the vast majority of the squad. Half to 100, Romero on 195,000 cut to under 100. Kudus, Gallagher, Maddison, all slashed overnight. Even Roberto De Zerbi's managerial contract reportedly contains provisions that reduce his salary if the club goes down. He told his first press conference he would be the manager next season no matter what, but his own contract quietly disagrees. On paper, Levy's foresight looks like genius. Every contract hedged, every wage protected. But in practice, half-price wages on world-class players is not a safety net. It is an open invitation, and every top club in Europe already knows the price. And this is where the whole picture flips, because Forest's strategy and Tottenham's strategy look like opposites, but they arrive at exactly the same place. With the clause, your players leave cheaply because the contract tells them to. Without the clause, you sell desperately because the finances force your hand. The relegation clause does not prevent the fire sale, it just decides who sets the price. Newcastle learned one lesson in 2016, Leeds learned the opposite in 2023, and right now 3 clubs are discovering that both lessons are true at the same time. The relegation clause exists because the gap between the Premier League and the Championship has grown into a chasm no contract can bridge. 120 million drops to single figures overnight and no percentage cut, not 45, not 50, not 60, can make that maths work. Clubs invented the relegation clause to soften the fall, but the fall has grown so steep that softening it is no longer the point. It does not save the club, it just lets you choose which version of the landing you prefer. Lose your players cheaply or pay wages you cannot afford. The relegation clause is a bet every club makes years in advance on a future they cannot predict. And right now, 3 of them are about to find out which side of that bet they are on. And honestly, the fact that 3 clubs could be reshaped forever by a paragraph buried in contracts their own fans have never read is exactly the kind of blind spot this channel lives to find. So if you enjoy football content that gets into the nitty-gritty across all kinds of topics, subscribing really is a no-brainer. If your club was fighting relegation right now, would you rather have the clause and lose your best players at a discount, or refuse it and gamble on paying Premier League wages in the Championship?